Welcome once again here on Regional Radio Sports. Thanks for joining us. I'm Paul County, the president and founder of Regional Radio Sports. We welcome you to Holy Cross College Men's and Women's Basketball Media Day. We're glad to be here with the head coach of the Saints on the men's side, Mike McBride, longtime friend. Great to have Coach with us here today. And Mike, it's neat to be able to have another go around with you here as we make that that turn around the sun. We're both graying a little bit. The beard's getting a little longer these days, but we're still having a blast, aren't we?
Yeah, let's not wheel us off just yet.
I think we're doing okay for a bunch of guys who grew up here in this state and just fell in love with this great game of basketball.
Yeah, I kind of like the positions we're in. Let's roll with it a little bit longer.
And let's roll some more. Let's roll and talk some Saints buckets here today. Obviously, you always have to go back and reevaluate what happened the year before, whether it be personnel, whether it be look at the schedule, you look at all the dynamics. I don't know how much time you go back and say, okay, listen, we went 14-15 a year ago. We were okay at home at 7-5. We were on the road 7-9. We were 9-11. I don't know how much that even plays into this year. Maybe none at all. But when you went through that evaluation process during the off season, and you looked at the games and the competitive moments that your young men played in, how much were you pleased? How much were you really disappointed? Or, kind of a moot point?
Well, it's not a moot point, and to be honest, it's kind of a combination of both. We started off the season about as poorly as a team could, and we were very young. We had 10 new guys, 9 of which were freshmen. So it was a very, very young, inexperienced team. So there were going to be growing pains. We understood that. The problem is those that were going through the growing pains didn't know they were coming. They didn't. I think they were kind of thought they had things figured out before they had them figured out, and we started off 1-5. And when you start 1-5, including a couple of those being conference losses, things can go sideways very, very quick. But fortunately, in part due to Bo Ludwig, who was a senior on that team, and then partly to the young guys growing up, we got it turned around and ended up making the conference tournament, which is always, the first standard, the first mark of success. So it overall was successful in that regard, but I think we could have been, had we accelerated the growth a little bit better, we'd have been further along.
You have not experienced this, what you went through last year, in a long, long time. So there were some growing pains, and don't tell me that you didn't grow, because I know you did. Now, 11 years on the job, right? I mean, you find yourself in a situation that's like, oh, my goodness, I thought we had gotten past this stage in the development of our program that I wouldn't have to go through this. Well, all that being said, you had to grow too. You had to change this or change that, or something was going to be an impasse. I'll never forget about 5 games in, you telling me, he goes, Paul, I don't know if we're going to win another game. And I really believed at that point in time when you looked me in the eye and said that, you really meant that.
Yeah, I mean, we were not playing well, and we had just all sorts of, again, growing pains. We had maturity issues. We had unity issues. We had coachability issues. We had, I'm sure I was doing a poor job. I'm not at all finger-pointing and blaming the players. It always it starts with how you start, so it begins with me. And so I'm sure I was doing some things wrong that had to be fixed. But it's a team sport. It's coaches, players, support staff all together trying to figure things out, and ultimately we did. We had a stretch, right after Christmas where I think we were probably playing the best of anybody in the league. We won, I think, 5 in a row, knocked off Olivet Nazarene, St. Xavier, lost in, I think it was double overtime, or was it single? Double? To Roosevelt, who was one of the top. So we really had it going, and then we didn't maintain it, which again is kind of a sign of a young team. But we did scrap and fight and get it together at the end and make the conference tournament.
Let's move forward and talk about this year. And obviously, you bring in some new faces, as well as some faces that you had, and expectations are greatly higher than what we probably even thought they would be. So are you happy the way camp has gone? Are you happy the way things are developed? And do you see a renewed sense of vigor amongst your boys?
Amongst some of them, yes. I don't think we're far enough along in terms of just having an edge, a competitive edge, taking things personally as a competitor. We have a tremendous group of young men. I mean, they are very mature. They are very smart, very friendly off the court, and sometimes that translates too much on the court. You don't want friendliness with the opposition. You want an edge against the opposition, and that's what we're trying to get. And too often players fall into the mindset that they can just turn that on game night. Well, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your training. So if your training is subpar, your performance will then be subpar.
That's very AKA Reggie White, the great defensive end for the Green Bay Packers. Hall of Famer, was probably the guy that was the greatest I've ever seen in my generation, of a guy that once the play started, he'd rip your head off if he could, but they'd be the first guy to come over and help you right up off the ground after you ripped your head off.
Yeah, we have too many guys that want to shake hands and not rip a head, and we got to get to the point where we want to rip a head off, and again, I'm speaking from a competitive character standpoint, just to make, the day and age we're in, we don't want things to get skewed.
You. All right, so let's talk about let's break this thing down by position, if you will. Let's talk about those guys that are going to be playing underneath the basket. It's going to be your post guys, your forwards. What can you tell me about those guys?
Well, obviously, we returned Tommy Snyder, who had a phenomenal freshman season, first team All-Conference, honorable mention All-American, was just immensely productive, and we expect the same things again from him, and then some. So he needs to grow and improve and not rest on what he accomplished, but take it to a new level. Joe Kelly, who was a freshman last year, now a sophomore, we need to see and have seen some glimpses of it, but need to see more consistency out of him in terms of providing like a defensive presence and a presence on the backboard. Jordan Montrose, a big kid, transfer from California. We expect him to be able to produce, and he's a tremendous young man, and he wants to be coached. He'll take coaching. He can learn. We've already seen vast improvement from him, so we know that'll come. We had a young man, R.S. Dooney, who we thought was going to really, really be able to help us under the rim this year. Unfortunately, is now out with a torn ACL. He's just a sophomore, so you'll get to see a lot of him the next 3 years, but you were going to see a lot of him this year. But now it falls in the post on the three guys I just mentioned, Tommy, Joe, and Jordan.
Now, in your offense, your wing players have got to be able to knock down shots. Let's talk about those guys that are going to be out there on the wing shooting the basketball from the perimeter.
So we've got our two wings, or our two most experienced young men, and they're just juniors, Justin O'Neill and Nash Hostetler, who both have logged heavy minutes, essentially have been 2-year starters for us, and we expect a step from them. We don't need exponential growth out of them. We need incremental growth. We need them to be better along the margins. They've been productive. Can now they be a little bit more productive, but do it in a more efficient manner? So the perimeter play starts with those two. Phil Robles, I know we haven't hit guard specifically, but would fall into that category as well as some guys that have proven they can play at this level and win at this level. Now they need to inch their production a little bit higher while being a lot more efficient in doing it.
The facilitators, your offense, once again, if it's going to have success, the guys that bring the ball down the floor, that get the end of the offense, that make the good wraparound pass or the good fundamental pass. Let's talk about those distributors.
Well, this will be a short segment because I don't know if we have any sound fundamental passers right now. We have some guys that can do it, but we're a little loose with the ball right now. We complicate the simple way too often. But I would throw Phil in there is a guy that can initiate offense for him or for us. Obviously, we look for him to score, and he did last year. I think he'll still be effective in that area, but again, efficiency is the key with that. He can initiate offense. A young man who's made a big jump from his freshman year, A.J. Roseman, a sophomore, can really help us in that regard. Drew Adzia, who saw some quality time last year as a freshman, is also improved. So he fits into that category. And then we've brought in 3 new guards, all transfers, all upperclassmen. Isaiah Cabrera, Justin Milch, Greg Wells, who we think will be very, very good for us. We think they'll produce at a high level. It won't be too often we've had guys the last 2 years on the perimeter that when you look at their stat line, the only thing that was there were minutes. There were minutes per game, but there just wasn't a lot with it. These guys, I think, will have minutes per game, and we'll see assists. We'll see scoring. We'll see rebounds. Obviously, you don't have a defensive presence on the stat line, but if those three, Greg, Isaiah, and Justin, can give us a defensive presence, their offensive pop could take us to a new level.
If you look at it historically speaking, last year, you gave up 72 points a game. Now, there have been some teams in years past, they were significantly lower than that. And I know that's something that is part of your signature of what you want to be. So for our listening audience who wants to know the defensive mindset going in, maybe one of those goals that you have each and every time you step out on the floor here at McKenna Arena, where do you want to be from a defensive standpoint? What do you want to hold your opponents to?
Well, when we hold opponents, and we can get really deep in the weeds with this if you would like, but in general, total points per game. If we hold a team in the 60s, in the 11 years I've been here, we win almost 80% of the time. I think it might be just over 80. It's like 81%, 79 or 81. I'm terrible with numbers. I can remember a final score, but all these other
We'll take the 79%. That puts you in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So when we have a defense like we are, we're just our success rate is off the charts when we have a defense. Last year, we just didn't have one. It was so casual, so we were helping the opponent like we were. So, yeah, that has to get – you use the word, and we've used it with our team. They have to be significantly better in that area. And if we are significantly better in that area, we're significantly better as a team. We're not just inching along. That's a big jump, but we got to make it defensively.
So if I'm going into the locker room across the way here and I'm looking up on the easel board, I want you to take me a little bit behind the scenes. I know you're going to indulge only a few things with me because you're not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater here. But the reality of it is, what are the three things that Mike McBride, he wants from his basketball team each and every night that is always going to be on the easel board?
I'll give you 4, 2 offensive, 2 defensive. I'll start defensive because that's what we should be built on. Defensively, we've got to stop the ball and get the ball. So you stop it in transition. You stop it in penetration. You stop it from getting to the post. You rebound it. You get the first rebound. You get a clean stop, not a lucky stop. So you stop the ball, then you get the ball. You're active. You force turnovers. We're not a high turnover force defensive system, and I'm good with that, but we do need to be active and create somewhere the opportunities present itself by being active in gaps, active on lob help, and then get the ball. 50-50 balls do not exist for Holy Cross. Those need to be like 99-1 in our favor. There's no lucky bounce. It's the bounce you go get. You go get it. You go create it. You make it happen. So that's the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, our 2 objectives are sureness and shot opportunity. Don't put the thing at risk. I'm pointing up at our scoreboard. The only thing that moves that scoreboard are points, not field goal attempts, not it almost went in, not a degree of difficulty. You're going to get 1, 2, or 3 points. So you've got to cherish that possession. Be sure with the ball. Don't put it at risk. Don't compromise the possession because you think something's open, but it's not. Be patient. And then shot opportunity. Get the best shot we can. Not the degree of difficulty, not the one you saw on Twitter, before you came in the gym. The best shot. And that starts at the rim, works its way to the free throw line, and then out to clean threes.
Take a look at the landscape of the Chicagoland Collegiate Athletic Conference. Very, very rugged, and it starts, fortunately, we're here in Indiana, the basketball capital of the world, and we've got 2 teams right here in our state, IU South Bend, IU Northwest, who have really, is it safe to say, Olivet certainly can make the argument, but is it safe to say that the balance of the power of the CCAC is leaning towards the Hoosier State? Rightfully so.
Rightfully so, yeah. I mean, so obviously we had our stay at the top, and then have kind of last couple of years giving some of it back, but we're trying to get right back there. That's the idea. Obviously, South Bend's been very good the last couple of years. IU Northwest has been in the national tournament. They're very competitive. Cal St. Joe, who we failed to mention, they were in the national tournament, not in the immediate recency, but maybe 5-6 years ago. So Olivet's always there, but Holy Cross has been there a lot, and so have the other Indiana schools.
Most coaches will tell you this, and as I have interviewed them, and Tanner has interviewed coaches prior to games here inside McKenna Arena, one of the things that's become a commonplace that we hear from the opposing coaches, Holy Cross is the most difficult team to play against. So how would Mike McBride view that comment?
I would take that as a compliment, not personally, but for our team and for our players. We are never going to be the most talented. We just aren't. That's not the way we're resourced necessarily. That hasn't been the case. And I'm not we have had all Americans here, so I'm not saying our guys are a bunch of stiffs. But we've got to have talent in terms of intensity, edge, competing, being hard to play against. What that looks like on the court, obviously you know what that makeup is mentally and emotionally, but on the court you got to be hard to score against. You can't just make it easy like we made it easy for teams too often last year. You don't give them easy buckets. You don't give them second chance points. You challenge every shot. You challenge everything. You're just in general just a complete pain in the other guy's side, and it's constant. It doesn't go away. It's not like a cramp. Like for 40 minutes we're a pain in their side, and offensively we make them guard us. Like teams will break down. If you just move the ball, they will make a mistake. Most teams are not built defensively. Most teams talk about defense and yearn to score. We live defense and make it hard for you to score, and then we make you guard us.
You're looking, once again, going back on 14 and 15 a year ago, and give you an open-ended question, plain and simple about that, because we're all in the business of what have you done for me lately. We're based upon athletics is based upon performance. So the question I would have is this. The Holy Cross College Saints here at Notre Dame, Indiana are going to have a great year if this happens.
If our defense is significantly better, we can get back to championship levels this year if our defense is significantly better.
When you look at the big picture of the program here at Holy Cross College at Notre Dame, what are you the most proud of as a guy who's come in and brought teams to the national championship tournament series, won conference championship? What is the one thing Mike McBride is the most pleased about?
We've been the first. We were the first to hang a banner. First team, men's basketball team to hang a banner. We're across the street from one of the greatest traditions in all of college sports. Obviously Notre Dame football. We'll just, for the timeliness of it, they just beat USC for who knows how many times. Like when you go to Notre Dame, you become one of many that have done it. You come here, you become one of the first to do it. We're building the tradition, and so that's what I'm most proud of, is being, along with the coaches that preceded me, but being the one to help build the tradition. The players do the work. But I'm kind of like the coaching staff puts together the plan, and the players get the opportunity, the teams get the opportunity to be the first. So we've had a conference champion. We've had a couple national tournaments. We've had a Sweet 16. Who's going to be the first to get to the Final Four? Who's going to be the first to get the red banner? Who's going to be the first to win the conference tournament? Still a lot out there, a lot to be done. And if this team gets a defense that's significantly better, it's going to give itself an opportunity to do all those things I just mentioned.
Let's close it out and talk about the schedule, both the non-league and the league schedule. One thing that Holy Cross, IU South Bend, Goshen, and Bethel have all done, and I think it's one of the neatest things that's ever happened to NAIA basketball, is they've got together and they decided that each year we're going to play each other, and you get a chance. It's that Chicagoland Collegiate Athletic Conference, Crossroads League, Crosstown Showdown, whatever you want to call it. That has been great for college basketball. We're fortunate because we get a chance to see 3 of the 4 schools. So give us an idea about that particular series, as well as the non-league series, as well as the CCAC slate.
Okay, so yeah, those are 2 exciting nights. All 4 schools in the same building, all 4 fans in the same building. So that's a special thing that I hope continues. The thing with our schedule is our league, like our fifth game of the year is a conference game. Our fifth game of the year. And that's why we're trying to get our players, and I think they're starting to understand it, but it's we have to be so urgent today, because when it hits fast. And we're going to be, like, we open at St. Ambrose. We're going to be at, in Davenport, Iowa, quick. We don't have 10, 12 games or an extra few weeks to get it figured out. We need to figure it out now, because if you don't have it figured out on the road in conference play, you're going to get beaten pretty bad.
And the reality of it is, a loss in November could hurt you in March.
It does. It's got that NFL feel to it. Week 1 can bite you in week 16 if you're not careful.
Yeah, the old adage is you can't lose the pennant in April, but you certainly can lose it in April if you don't play well, because you don't get there.
Yeah, exactly.
As always, don't forget, Saints basketball all season long. You can join us right here on Regional Radio Sports. You can join the legendary Pat Dirksen, as well as Tanner Camp, yours truly, along with Coach Mark Gardner, Ron Heklinski, all part of the voices of Regional Radio Sports Basketball for Tanner Camp here today, and Mia McComish. I'm Paul Condry. Thanks for joining us here from Holy Cross College Media Day on the Regional Radio Sports Network.